War, the British finally adopt the convoy system. It is a smashing success. In 1917, U-boats sink 3,000 ships. In 1918, only 134 ships are lost in convoys. In November 1918, Germany surrenders. The first submarine war in history is over. In only 4 years, this new weapon has sent over 5,000 ships to the bottom of the sea.
And that was 1/4 of all of the ships that existed at that time. So this unproven experimental submarine of the turn of the century turned into a major maritime threat.
When Germany surrenders, the Allies confiscate all her U-boats. But as the world celebrates peace, one U-boat captain is sitting in a British prison camp planning a response to the convoy. His name is Karl Dönitz, and he is already preparing for another submarine war. In less than 20 years, the U-boat will be reborn. And once again, thousands of sailors on both sides will die in watery graves. There are hundreds of U-boat wrecks lying on the ocean floor. 5 were sunk off the American coast, their positions recorded by the U.S. Navy. The Navy's World War II record, still on file in Washington, lists some 10,000 attacks on U-boats, but none at the location of the New Jersey wreck.
Had a pretty good handle on where the U-boat wrecks were, but not in the position that John Chatterton gave me.
Nor do German records mention any U-boat lost here. The identity of this boat will have to be found in the wreck itself. The divers begin making regular trips to the U-boat. They start searching randomly for any object that might contain information. At first, they are confident, even overconfident.
We'll come out here and we'll identify the wreck. How hard could it be? I think I might have even been the guy to say it is, how hard could this be? Like another day or two out here and we'll have this thing positively identified.
John handed me this underwater. I think he recovered it. It was like a flurry of activity. We figured we'd have this thing identified in no time. But events 6 years hence have proved us wrong.
By the end of their first season, the divers have learned little.
Take up bowling.
Yeah, bowling would be good.
Golf.
That doesn't exclude the 857 or the 879.
Over the winter, they gather information to better focus their search.
We pored over historic photographs of U-boats, propaganda films. The other thing we did was we spoke to veterans and people who were knowledgeable in U-boat life. And we said, well, what could we bring up from the wreck site that would give us positive identification on this wreck?
A U-boat veteran suggests looking for an escape lung, an emergency breathing device used to leave a sunken submarine. U-boat sailors often wrote their names on their escape lungs, and a name might help identify the wreck.
Right where those shelves were, there's a escape lung there. What I'd like to do is to go to recover that.
In dive after dive, they sift through the debris and locate several escape lungs.
just trying to see if the mouthpiece is in here, guys.
Well, you know, according to the guys in Germany, all these guys' escape bunks had their names on them.
I don't see any writing, do you?
No. Yeah, you know what? Whatever they wrote it on doesn't seem to have lasted.
We recovered several of them, none of which had any identifying marks on them.
I don't know.
Keep that plate, keep that plate.
The escape lungs proved disappointing. By now, the divers have been through most of the wreck without result. But there are two crucial areas they have yet to search.
We've been everywhere inside the wreck with the exception of the diesel motor room and the e-motor room. And unfortunately, we just haven't been successful.
You know,
The electric motor room may hold the key. The divers have learned that boxes of spare parts stored here were often marked with tags bearing the U-boat's number. But reaching the electric motor room means passing through the diesel room. And the divers learned early on that the diesel motor room is perhaps the most dangerous place in the wreck.
I got my body halfway in the opening, and I saw the cables hanging and all the debris just jutting out at angles. Kind of lost my nerve. It spooked me. You've got exhaust manifolds, pipe, plumbing, flanges, cables galore. All these objects just trying to grab you, it seems at times. And not only that, because the diesel motor room has all this huge equipment, you could bump into it, and that's when it chooses to break free on top of you.
one over ground that we've already looked at.
Right.
We're rehashing it.
You didn't come out with anything, did you?
No. Everywhere else we've been to at least once.
Having exhausted all other possibilities, the divers feel they have no choice. They will attempt the dangerous passage into the e-motor room.
So we got to go where we haven't been.
The plan is to enter the hatch, pass between the diesel motors, and continue into the electric motor room. The attempt begins. They pass through the hatch as planned. But as they approach the diesels, they discover their path is blocked. A large oil tank, normally bolted to the ceiling, has fallen. The space below the tank is too shallow to permit a diver to pass. Above, the gap between the tank and the pressure hull is also too small. Unable to continue past the tank, they abort the dive. A significant area of the wreck cannot be searched. It is a major setback. But the dive is not a total loss. On his way out of the diesel motor room, John Chatterton notices a sheet of metal that seems to have writing on it. This sheet of aluminum is marked with a schematic diagram, but it's the small print in the lower corners that interests the divers.
9C, Deschemeg, Bremen. That told us that this U-boat is definitely a Type 9C-40 German U-boat built at the Deschemeg plant in Bremen, Germany.
We know that it's a Deschemeg Bremen boat. That's our limiting factor.
From there, we were able to say, okay, there's only like 25 boats of this type that were built at that plant.
At last, the divers have a clue that narrows the field. For this wreck to be a Type 9 is not surprising. The Type 9 was a long-range boat used to patrol distant waters off Africa or America. It is designed in the 1930s as Germany starts to rearm. After World War I, the Germans are banned from having any submarines. But in 1935, the British allowed Germany to once again build U-boats. The British are confident they have nothing to fear because they now have ASDIC, or sonar, to locate submerged submarines. But Karl Dönitz, commander of Germany's new U-boat force, thinks ASDIC is overrated. It only works underwater, so he will use his U-boats in a way the British are not expecting.
Dönitz wanted to use the boats more as surface torpedo vessels, vessels that could submerge and escape danger, but which would do most of their damage on the surface.
To overcome convoys, Dönitz will use group attacks. Large numbers of U-boats will silently stalk convoys by day, then swarm in at night for the kill. Dönitz calls this the wolf pack.
Like an antibody in the bloodstream destroying a virus, they will converge on a convoy. So what he needs are massive numbers of U-boats to accomplish that.
But Hitler doesn't wait for the boats to be built. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invades Poland. Two days later, England declares war on Germany. The German Navy has only 57 U-boats, a fraction of what Dönitz needs. Still, he has not forgotten the lesson of Wedekind in World War I, who showed the world the power of a single U-boat. Dönitz plans a daring mission. He will send Günther Prien in U-47 into the home port of the British fleet. Six weeks into the war, Prien sinks the British battleship Royal Oak in its own harbor. It is a stunning victory. In Germany, Prien becomes a legend. The greatest U-boat hero since Wedekind. Just as Dönitz predicted, ASDIC has made the British overconfident.
The British Admiralty, I think, overestimated her anti-submarine warfare capabilities, especially the ASDIC. And the first tactical approach of German U-boats was attacking not in a submerged stage, but on surface.
It takes a lot of nerve to attack on the surface, but Dönitz hammers home his message. The way to win is to be daring.
He's going to be the kind of leader who will constantly push his people to be as aggressive as possible, on the edge of being caught or being sunk, always on the brink of perhaps recklessness. But he believes that only that will bring the victory in the end.
Well, you always have to take risk. That is clear. But it was a thin line. I had to be aware that I was responsible for my crew. On the other hand, my task was to sink ships.
The U-boat men call this the happy time. A desperate Winston Churchill turns to America. The U.S. Navy begins escorting British convoys carrying vital supplies. 6 months before Pearl Harbor, America is fighting an undeclared war against the U-boats. One of those U-boats is commanded by Eric Topp. In the early morning of October 31st, 1940,